Good evening, Vishwas. Good evening, Chetan, Stan, Rishali. Yeah, I didn't share the PDF. Not feeling well since morning. In fact, since night. So didn't did any work today. Just I was lying on the bed. So I didn't did anything. Just in the evening, I was thinking to off the class, but I thought that it will create unnecessary problem for you guys. So that's why I didn't share any PDF. I will share it tonight. I will share it tonight. Okay. Good evening, Akshay. Good evening, Vedamurta. 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 Okay. So, just severe headache was there. So, generally, doctor advised me कि if you are going to feel dizzy, means headache something, try to avoid the screen. So, since morning, early morning, I have not touched any device, but feeling better right now. So, probably I will share it tonight. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, better right now. And tomorrow is Sunday. So sometimes what that Sunday syndrome is always there. So that's why I do not want to cancel the class today because Sunday syndrome is there and that Sunday syndrome is always going to be in the mind. So that's why I thought that it's better to take at least whatever you are able to take. Till then, what? So I will take, and if possible, I will take tomorrow also. Okay. Good evening, Shoham. Shoham. Okay. So yesterday we have started our discussion, right? Our discussion for the descriptive part, and initially I let you know how to tackle the question. Fine. The presentation part. So I told you in the presentation part, three section. One is intro, then body, then conclusion. So body is going to take most of the word which is defined for your word limit. At least 50 to 60% should go to the body part, whereas the conclusion and intro part will take uh, rest of the part. Means if you are giving 60% to your body, then 15 to 20% for introduction and rest of the for conclusion. In this way we have to separate our answer and try to write the body part in the bullet format, right? So that things are going to be crystal clear and you are going to present more relevant data in your answer. So this is what you have to follow as a theme of your answer writing in the descriptive part, and I will discuss on daily basis. What you can do is, as per the discussion, you can write your answer. Right. Initially, write and practice. Later on, I will ask you to submit so that I can check, and whatever the best answer will be there, I will share on the group. Right. But it's humanly not possible to check all the copies. Fine. So initially, you should start doing practice on your own. Okay. Do it practice on your own. Later on, if possible, I will check some copies and I'll share the feedback to you also. Okay. So, in the last class, we have started our first question that was related to what? That was related to globalization involved since last global financial crisis of 2008, analysis and impact, right? So, we have to go for analysis and an impact. And for that purpose, uh, where was that PDF? Yes. So, in this PDF, I have put some points. Uh, from various sources. I took some points from here, from various sources, and put it at one place so that I can let you know what happened since global financial crisis at the level of where globalization. So last global financial crisis was of 2008, and since then, what happened at level of globalization? So it's very important. You must know what is globalization. Fine. So globalization means what? Interconnection of distanced things. When they are interconnected, we will call it as a globalization in the very simplest term, right? But in this question, the question which was asked ki, how the different dimensions of globalization involve since last global financial crisis of 2008, analyze the impact, right? Analysis the impact. Fine. So in this question, you not need not to go for what? Extended explanation what is globalization. Your explanation about globalization should be in what? Only in intro part and brief, one or two lines, right? So in one or two line, just start with what is globalization, explain what is globalization, right? What is globalization? Globalization is a process of connecting different part of the world with the help of technology, right? So technology plays very significant role for the interconnection of various part of the world through information communication technology and connecting the world through the various means like trade and commerce. Okay, so this is what we say globalization. So in that way, you can just explain the globalization. Then in the next point, you have to write about what global financial crisis and mention that the global financial crisis was started with liquidation of Lehman Brothers Bank in 2007, and it has created a spiral effect all over the world. However, the Western economies was severely hit and other countries were also hit, including India. So India was not exception to the global financial crisis. Fine. So in the second line, you have explained the global financial crisis. Now, what they are asking, analyze the impact. Fine. So aftermath of global financial crisis, global community has taken certain steps in order to prevent any such kind of the future crisis. So in the various dimensions, the efforts were being taken by the various authorities, whether at financial level or political level, right? So they have taken many decisions, and in that way, they tried to prevent any future crisis, right? This is what you have mentioned. Next line, you can mention that these are the certain impacts of global financial crisis on the globalization. So next line you have write that, then you can come with these points. Then you can come with these points. These are the main points which are important for what? Which have shown the, even you can give the short heading also, the dimensions of globalization involve since last global financial crisis 2008. Then you can start writing all these. Okay. Sir, will there be a compilation of the current affairs for phase 1 and 2 by Grade B to revise the content of previous months? Revising weekly is taking too much time. Vishwas, I will talk to Ashok sir in this regard. Okay. What he have planned and whatever the strategy I'll discuss, then I'll let you know regarding this. सर हिंदी में ग्लोबलाइजेशन को क्या कहते हैं? वैश्वीकरण, वैश्वीकरण कहते हैं. वैश्वीकरण. Okay. Globalization. Sir, I have a short doubt before answering the question. Instead of giving question number, can we write the question? See, writing a question will take a lot of time. Writing a question is going to take a lot of time, and the person who is going to evaluate the copy, he is well aware. If you have mentioned the question number one, he is automatically going to get it, and that is his job, not as your job, to identify the question. Right, his job is identify the question and evaluate the copy. So I feel it's unnecessary. It is going to take some time to type the entire question and then start writing. So absolutely not required. That can be fine if you will do the lot of practice of answer writing. Then it will be fine. No need to do that thing. No need to do that thing in the final exam. Do the lot of practice, and that lot of practice is going to give you the confidence. So there will be no confusion in the final exam. So absolutely not required anything else. Sir, can we mention vocal for local like campaign? In this answer, vocal for local is not required. Right. This question is not global versus local. This is not a question where they are asking what global versus local. Right. So in such kind of the questions where globalization have a severe impact on your economy, then such kind of slogan is fine. Right. India get benefited by connecting themselves in the global economy. Right. So the more benefits India has received. See, once you will join anything, then there are certain benefits and there are certain laws. Fine. So we have to take the decision on overall aggregate final what we are going to in net loss or net profit. So for example, if you'll calculate India's integration with the global economy since 1991 1992, if you will start looking India's integration from this to this year, you will find that India get benefited more than the loss. So aggregate profit is there. So we should not oppose the globalization, right? We should not oppose the globalization. But yes, if certain countries like under Donald Trump, US went for what? US went for protectionism, protecting their local economy against the other country's economy. So if certain countries are doing this thing, then we can also go for local vocal for local kind of the thing. But in this answer, it is absolutely not required. You have to focus on what we what changes we have seen since financial crisis of 2008. Right. And the financial crisis of 2008 was basically based on what? Basically generated through banking and financial system. It was not actually a proper financial crisis. It was, sorry, it's an economic crisis. It was a financial crisis generated through the bank and severely impacted the banking system specifically. Right. And because of that, the other crisis came into the picture. Fine. So the most of the changes in the globalization, what we have seen since 2008, whatever the changes we have seen till then, 2022, they are basically focused on financial system only. Financial system is a part of what? It's a part of economy. This is our economy, and financial system is part of our economy. Fine. So at financial level, we have seen a lot of changes, but there is no too much changes at entire economic level, right? Means government budgeting and all these things, we have not seen changes too much in the other aspects and other areas also. The major thrust of change was the financial sector. विश्वास पहले एक काम करते हैं ये क्वेश्चन डिस्कस कर लेते हैं देन आई विल डिस्कस ग्लोबलाइजेशन इन जनरल Okay, I'll answer your question, but let finish the question which was asked last year. That is, what changes we have seen since 2008 in globalization, right? This is the question. We first discuss this one, then I'll come back to your question regarding globalization in general. And in fact, not only you, anyone who have a question related to the globalization, first patiently just understand this discussion of the question which was we have started discussing in the last class. Then I will answer if any other question do you have on globalization. Okay. So, what changes we have seen in the globalization? One by one, just take it. So, the most important change was related to what? The most important change must have to be in direct relation to what? Bank. Because bank banks were epicenter of that crisis. It means the crisis was generated because of banking system. So whatever the impact, right, of that crisis, the large impact was on banking system. And once the banking system, big banks were collapsed, the immediate after effect was we have to strengthen our banking system. So you can write that after global financial crisis of 2008, the banking system need more prudence, and that's why we have seen lot of changes in the international banking practice, right? And there was a lot of efforts made by the government as well as central bank tried to strengthen the banking system to absorb any future coming crisis, right? So in that direction, what they did, increasing the equity capital, increasing the equity capital of banks and reducing their dependence on short term loan, right? We know bank is a company which involves in the business of what? Which involves, in fact, rather than putting two arrows, the basic function of bank is what? To accept deposit for the purpose of lending. So lending is a main business of a bank, but that lending is going to be done once they will accept what? Deposit. So they accept the deposit for the purpose of lending. That is the main theme of a bank, right? But when the global financial crisis was hit in 2008, that was a need. Then we have analyzed, and what we have found that only deposit, means focusing on deposit, is not sufficient for the bank, and banks started taking certain risk, right, in order to maximize their profit. So just dependence on the deposits, just dependence on the deposit, because deposits are also what? Liabilities. Deposits are liabilities, right? So deposits are liabilities. Just focusing on the deposits and then go for lending is not sufficient in order to absorb any coming financial crisis, right? In order to absorb any upcoming financial crisis, bank should not depend upon just deposit they have received in the form of liabilities. Fine. They must have certain cushions in order to absorb certain crises. So that's why the equity capital of bank must be increased. Okay. So what is equity capital? What is the equity capital for a bank? What is the equity capital for bank? high quality capital, money of shareholders of bank. Money of shareholders of a bank. So suppose that if bank have 70% government share, bank X have 70% share, right? So bank X have a 70% share of who? Bank have a 70% share of government, right? So government has 70% shareholding, and the value of that 70% shares of a government, suppose that it is 90,000 crores, right? 90,000 crores. So when we are saying the increase the equity capital of a bank, then maybe banks in the bank, the shareholding of the government is going to be remain 70%. Maybe government's holding in the bank is going to be remain what? 70%. But the percentage of government shares who have value of 90,000, the bank's share which government hold, where the government hold how much? 70%, and the value of share is how much? 90,000 crore. So government is planning to increase it to 1.2 lakh crore. So that means government is going to infuse how much? 30,000 crore in the bank. So additional 30,000 crore is going to be available in the bank. So government has increased the valuation of its 70% share. Earlier government's share was valued at the 90,000 crore. Now the government shares is valued at 1,20,000 crore. So by this government has infused additional 30,000 crore. So earlier to do a business, bank have to go for what? Either deposits or borrow short-term loans and then do the business. Now banks have additional 30,000 capital infused by the owners. So if owners have infused the capital, right? If owners have infused the capital, then bank need not to pay interest, because if suppose bank have only 90,000 crore and bank want to do a business for additional 30,000 crores. So bank do not have that money. So bank is going to accept the deposits or going to borrow certain loan with the value of 30,000 crore, and bank have to pay the interest on it, right? Though if bank is going to borrow 30,000 crores, suppose bank is going to borrow that 30,000 crores and bank have to pay the interest rate of 4.5% on that 30,000 crore. So bank has invested this money somewhere from where bank can get at least 8.5% interest. Why? Because bank have to pay 4.5% interest on this borrowing, right? And bank also have to fulfill their basic expenditure. So bank is going to invest that money at some place where bank can get higher interest, right? So that it can fulfill all its basic expenditure, return the principal amount plus interest, plus make some profit. So why 8.5? So you have to pay the 4.5% interest, plus you have to bear your expenses, then you have to make what? Profit. So all these things are going to compel a bank to go for high risk investments, right? But if this money, 30,000 crore rupees, is infused by who? If this 30,000 crore rupees is infused by the owners of a bank, then in that case, bank need not to pay any interest. Fine. So even bank, rather than going to invest on high risk assets, bank can go for investment in the moderate or low risk assets, right? So this is one of the conclusion which was drawn after the global financial crisis, right? And you know this term in terms of what? Capital adequacy ratio. capital adequacy ratio or capital to risk weightage adequacy ratio, CAR or CRAR, capital to risk weightage ratio, right? So in that way, banks have to maintain the quality assets, right? So how banks are going to maintain the quality assets? When it was discussed, then it was found that if banks are going to have more equity capital, then automatically bank need not to go for high risk investments. Fine. And if bank is not going to go for very high risk investments, so those people who are also taking the risk, for example, I have a business, especially I have a business of real estate, right? The problem with the real estate sector is what? The problem with the real estate sector is suppose I purchased the land to construct a building there, right? So I purchased the land to construct a building there, right? And I have created a kind of model that this is the land where I am going to construct a building. Construction will take some time, right? Construction will take some time, and especially if it is a big building, it is going to take a lot of time to be constructed. Fine. But for construction, I have to put money immediately. I have to put money immediately. But most of the people who want to purchase the home, they are interested to go and purchase those homes which are ready to move, or they are going to be available in next 3 to 6 months. Fine. So generally what people will prefer to purchase a home which is ready to shift or will be available in next 3 to 6 months maximum, so that they can plan it accordingly. 3 to 6 months is going to be taken by the person in order to channelize loan and all these things. So that generally the preference is this. So what real estate owner assume that I am going to construct 30 flats, right? 30 flats I am going to construct, and one flat, if it is going to sold at the price of 1 crore, right? So I am going to make how much? 30 crores, right? And in order to construct this building, I need somewhere around 12 to 15 crores, right? And he went to the bank for the investment. So bank said that okay, I will fund somewhere around 12 crores. I will fund you somewhere around 12 crores, but you have to put the entire building, each and everything on the mortgage. Fine. So he have put the building, building which is under construction, and the land paper on the mortgage. Fine. And he took loan of how much? 12 crores from the bank. Then because of any crisis or any situation, if all those flats are not going to be sold out, right? Even if half of the flats are not going to be sold out in the given time, he assumed that the building is going to ready and then people will ready to shift. But because of if any reason, if people are not going to shift or not going to purchase, or some regulatory changes made by the government, or some big incident happened in that area which is going to change the psyche of the people with respect to that area, if something will happen, lot of externalities are there. If something is going to happen, most probably people are not going to purchase this home. Then in that case, whatever the money bank has given, what maximum bank can do? Maximum bank is going to what? Take the possession of that building, and then bank is trying to go to sell it to recover this money. But this entire process is very hectic and problematic. And at the same time, if bank which have given a loan of 12 crore, this 12 crore, the loan was given by the bank, if that money 12 crore is from where? Equity capital. Equity capital, then owners have to bear the risk, right? So owners have to bear the risk. Whereas if this 12 crores was taken by the bank in order to fund that real estate owner who is developing the building, then in that case, if bank has taken the loan of 12 crores from some others and bank have to repay that money, then bank is going to be in the deep crisis, because this money is not being recovered from the real estate owner. Now bank have to pay the interest as well as principal amount, And if bank is going to fail to pay, then whosoever have put their money in the bank, they will also start trying to withdraw their money. So the chain reaction will be started, and this is going to impact bank severely, and maybe bank is going to collapse. Right. So this is why if the bank is going to invest from equity capital, number one, then bank can do what? Bank can stop their complete downfall. Though there is going to be what? There is going to be the loss for the owners of the bank. Fine. But at least bank can sustain themselves. Bank is not going to collapse. Fine. So this is why this equity capital is considered as cushion for the bank. Okay, so that's why the emphasis was on what? Infusion of equity capital. So what lesson we have drawn from that financial crisis at global level? Ki banks must have higher equity capital. The one lesson we have drawn. Fine. So it must be given the top priority when you are writing an answer. This point must be your first point. Why? Because it was a central theme, and you know that Basel III norms, and under the Basel III norms, capital adequacy ratio was fixed for all the banks. Time was given. Government also said that they are going to infuse the equity capital in public sector banks. So all these things you have seen over the time. Maybe if you have not seen, but I have seen. That's why I'm telling you this was the one of the biggest impact. Right? This was one of the biggest impact on the globalization at global level, not only just in India. Everywhere government has tried to infuse the money in those banks in order to increase the equity capital. So I hope this point is clear. Okay. So the second point is saying that the financial sector of emerging market economy now have more deeper links. The next impact of globalization. Actually, globalization till then 2007-8 financial crisis, it was driven by only developed countries, and developing countries just a mean, right, in order to fulfill the globalization requirement. Means Western countries want to integrate, Western countries like US and European countries want to integrate developing economies for the purpose of greater market access, right? This is why they are pushing for more globalization. Fine. They are pushing whom? The developing countries to be the part of global financial system or global market. The reason is they always believe that this is going to give a greater access of developing countries market, which is have a huge size. But when this financial crisis hit, and that impact was a severe impact on Western economies, right? Western economies. Then those people who are putting their money and investment in those high developed countries like US and Europe, they started diverting their investment from those countries to which countries? Those countries to developing countries. So the inflow of capital, if you look in India, if you will see the data in India, the inflow of capital from 1991 to 2007, right? It was increasing like this. It was increasing like this, right? But if you will see the inflow of capital from 2007 to 2020, or better to take 2019, because COVID has severely hit the economy. So it's not appropriate to take it as a data, because that is an exceptional situation. So we should not judge a general situation by including the exceptional situation. So if you will look this phase, so this was the phase when the inflow of what? inflow of capital, the foreign capital in India, the inflow of foreign capital in India, it was moving like this. But if you will look this stage, it was moving like this. So curve which is little bit flat, it is now steeper. More inflow of capital from developed countries to developing countries is there, right? And that's why it has created a pressure on what? Capital account of balance of payment, right? Means lot of foreign people want to take ownership of Indian capital assets which are in India, right? They want more shareholding, they want more ownership in the Indian companies, and that pressure was very much on Indian government to go for more relaxation, so that foreign countries companies, they can acquire the shares and bonds or the ownership in the Indian firms, right? Not only in the Indian firm, but in fact all over the world where the developing economies are there. So this is one of the analysis, or you can say that that is the impact of what? That is the impact of global financial crisis. Because of this impact, inflow of capital increased. So what was the first analysis? Under the first analysis, we will write after global financial crisis, after the global financial crisis, banks all over the world started, not banks, central banks and their government tried to increase the equity capital in their banks first. Second observation is the inflow of capital in developing economies has increased in the very fast pace in last 1 decade after the global financial crisis. Okay, this is the second observation. I hope you got these 2 points. Let me know so that I can move towards the third point. These 2 points, I hope you have clarity on these 2 points. See, in the second point, what I mentioned that after the impact of financial crisis of 2008, that financial crisis has severely hit the Western economies, right? And you know that Western economies are what? Basically a capitalist economy, unlike Indian economy, which is mixed economy in the nature. And it is a great saying about the capitalism. There is a great saying about the capitalism is, if in the capitalism, if war will be broke out or people will start dying, right? War will be broke out or people start dying. In that case, capitalists will start selling the coffins, right? So capitalism is always about what? Looking for the profit, right? So capitalists will start selling the coffins when we will say that there is a death is increasing in the particular area. They will start selling the coffins because they know that now the demand of coffin is going to increase and we can make profit if we'll start selling the coffins. So this is the criticism of the capitalism, right? And this is true here in the second point what I have mentioned. Most of the capitalists, they are putting their money, assets, shareholdings in the Western economies because they are giving rich dividend. Fine. Good amount of profits you are able to generate. But when the financial crisis hit 2008, after that, many capitalists lost their entire capital, and the others who not lost entire capital but some amount of capital, they started shifting their investments from highly developed economy to those developing economies. In developing economies, maybe there will be less amount of profit, and it will take more time to get good amount of return. But there is a more safety measures in those developing economies, so better to invest our money in those developing economies. Fine. So that is why from 2008-9 words, we have seen a big trend of moving of capital from developed world to developing world. Actually, even before the crisis, that was a movement. But after the crisis, that movement have gained the momentum and acceleration in the very fast pace. This is what I was explaining. Right. Now, the third point, the provision of emergency liquidity to the banking system remains core function of the central bank. Emergency liquidity means what? The first step, which we have discussed in the first step, banks must have higher equity capital, right? So that we can prevent any financial crisis, right? That was a step which is going to uh, create a cushion for upcoming crisis, right? But suppose if crisis is going to hit, whatever the cushions or whatever the preventive measures you have taken, that's fine. But that is not going to be sufficient if the crisis is going to be hit, right? And when there is a crisis, bank needs immediate liquidity so that bank can prevent it from complete liquidation. See, banking business is based on trust, and once the customer is going, for example, in the case of PMC bank, do you think that anyone is going to put their money, if even in fact about the Yes Bank. So Yes Bank was hit with the crisis. If somebody is going to ask me, ki, do you want to do you want to open your account in the Yes Bank, or we are offering 0.5% extra interest rate in our bank if you are going to deposit higher amount of money, we will offer you more interest. So most of the time people are going to refuse. Why? The trust of the people with the Yes Bank is broken, and it is going to take time to forget that crisis of Yes Bank by the people, right? So we have to create a mechanism so that bank's image in the public domain should not be shattered, right? So that means if bank is going to hit with the crisis, in that situation, bank must get immediate liquidity so that bank can resolve this issue at least at that moment, so that no kind of what means in a public, banks should not get a bad image impression. So how we can do it? How can maintain the trust if bank is going to get immediate liquidity, so that in that case bank is not supposed to be what defamed in the public domain. So in order to prevent bank being defamed in the public domain, we have to make certain measures, and that measures should be focused on what? That measure should be focused on providing immediate liquidity to banking system if bank is going to hit with any crisis. Okay, if bank is going to hit with any crisis, though you can, after writing this, you can already mention there that is a thing which is more required for all countries except India. Why? Because in India, RBI already pushed banks to have a higher reserve liquidity in the form of cash by maintaining higher cash reserve ratio in comparison to global practice. So under the global practice, bank have to maintain somewhere around uh, maximum 1 or 2% of CRR, whereas RBI at that point of time 4% of CRR, right? So this, in this context, you can write it here. once the global financial crisis hit, after that, banks have started doing this thing. Under that effort, banks have tried to focus more on what? Emergency liquidity management for the banking system. Though RBI, even before the financial crisis, was always focused on this thing, and that's why RBI asked bank to maintain higher cash reserve ratio in comparison to other central banks all over the world. Sir, please add fintech descriptive in this course. Fintech descriptive means you want I should discuss the fintech also in the descriptive part. So I will discuss. If you have any other thing you want to say, please describe it properly. Because what I am understanding is you want some descriptive discussion on what? Some descriptive discussion on this topic. This topic means what? Fintech topic. So I am also already going to do that. But apart from that, if you want to say anything, please explain. I didn't get the point. So this emergency liquidity to the banking system is clear. I will discuss it, not today, but I will discuss it. At a point of time, I will discuss it. Right. So the next point is the important point, this financial crisis. Under this financial crisis, some vulnerabilities means financial crisis came, right? Financial crisis came and some banks were liquidated, means they are not in existence. So when banks started liquidating, then the scrutiny of entire banking system was done. Okay, so two banks, three banks, suppose that our banking system have 25 banks. Financial crisis hit our banking system and two, three banks were collapsed. Then what will happen? RBI is going to do the detailed review of remaining banks. Fine. So when the detailed review of remaining banks happened, central bank found that there are some small banks, they are also having the same vulnerability, for which means the same vulnerability, because of that vulnerability those banks were liquidated. So two three banks liquidated because of that vulnerability, and we also have the same vulnerability in small some few banks. So what we can do, either we can make those banks enough capital, we provide the enough capital to those banks, or it is better to amalgamate that bank with more prudent bank. So our banking system suppose have 25 banks, 3 were fallen, 22 are left, and after the review, government or RBI find that out of this 22, 6, 7 are also have the same problem. Maybe they can also fall. So either you can strengthen them or you can go for what? Alternative path, merge them with the bigger bank so that it is going to be like too big to fall. Means bigger bank, bigger capital assets. So the vulnerability is less in comparison to the small bank. So this is why we have seen from 2008 financial crisis, some banks emerge as a big bank, right? Big bank. For example, in the case of State Bank of India, finally the entire all these associates, each and everything was over, and government is doing what? Government learned that lesson, government of India learned that lesson, and government is trying to what? Create a tier of banking system, whereas in which there are 4 5 big banks and then the small banks to cater the normal people daily deposit and small loan requirements, right? So strengthening of banking system, creating a big banks, and with the philosophy of too big to fail. What is the philosophy? Philosophy is too big to fall. So with this philosophy, some banks size were increased through the legislation or by merger or amalgamation. Right. So this is the another impact of what? Global financial crisis. Acha, add to fintech descriptive questions model answer in the descriptive section of the fintech finance. Okay, I'll do that. So this point is clear. Too big to fail problem. Some banks being so large that they cannot be allowed to fail. Need focused on analysis and the resolution. Right? How banks become bigger after the crisis due to cooperation of bank of respective countries. See, government has created lot of conditions. Government has created lot of conditions so that the small banks who are vulnerable, either they are going to be what? Either they are going to be disbanded or they must go and amalgamate with the other bank. Fine. So government has started creating such a situation with the help of central bank so that those banks who are small and they have more vulnerabilities to come under the wave of financial kind of crisis kind of the thing, so they must not have their existence. Now we have to remove their existence either by disbanding them. So disbanding the bank is not a right option, so better to push the bank to get an amalgamated with other bank which have higher protection skill in terms of having higher equity capital and big size. So in this way this thing happened. Sir, but too big to fail was an aspect of the crisis. Yes, banks went for taking risk with the confidence of bailout from the government. Yes, that is why that is why government and RBI, especially in the Indian context, government and RBI went for a guidelines for too big to fail bank, systematically important banks. So government and RBI have went for specific guidelines for those banks too big to fail. They have more restrictions to take risk, right? In comparison to other banks, if you are a bank and you are systematically important bank like ICC Bank, SBI, HDFC, so there are systematically important banks. So once you will get the tag of what? Too big to fail, then you have to follow more stringent terms and conditions. Why? What is the philosophy? Philosophy is too big to fail. That means what? We are not going to allow you to fail. We are not going to allow you to fail because you are too big, right? So that's why more terms and conditions are going to be put on you so that you cannot fall. And but yes, if you are going to fall, then definitely bailout package will be provided by the government. That is true, but at the same time, government and central bank are also going to put more stringent terms and conditions on those banks, right? So I hope this is clear right now. Okay, so in the next point, the crucial aspect of the financial crisis was built up of private debt, that is, the debt of household and non financial firms. The key driver of recession, the key driver of the recession was in the US was the rise of household debt and consequent drop of household consumption. The growth in the credit as well as flow of credit to into sectors such as real estate need to be strict regulation. So global financial crisis has created one more and a more regulatory aspects over some vulnerable sectors, right? So some vulnerable sectors like real estate sector. So see, what they want to explain with this point is consumption and savings, right? So consumptions and savings. So savings are going to be channelized in investments, right? And consumption leads to what? Demand. And this demand will lead to what? Investment requirements. Investment requirements. So consumption will be there. That consumption is going to trigger a demand, and that triggered demand is going to trigger another thing, the requirement of the investment. And whereas the savings made by the people, they are going to put in the form of investment, and that investment is going to fulfill the requirement of investment. Fine. So if demand is generated by what? If this demand is generated by high risk sectors like real estate sector, then it is going to collapse entire saving, investment and investment required system, right? So that global financial crisis 2008, that global financial crisis also created an emphasis on relation between consumption and investment requirements. What it means? It means that after that crisis, central banks all over the world who are more focused with respect to what? Who are more focused with respect to flow of liquidity in the economy, savings and investments, interest rates, and inflation management, right? Liquidity, saving, investments, right? Inflation in the economy. Now, you also have to focus on consumption related demand. So if in an economy consumption is rising, if in an economy consumption is rising, but that consumption is rising exorbitantly in high risk area, right? High risk area like real estate. Consumption is rising, means real estate is on boom. Real estate is on boom. So banks, central banks, government have to be more alert. Why? Because that is a high risk area, and that high risk area can create again a same kind of what? Crisis. So from that global financial crisis of 2008, now the banks, especially the central banks, are more vigilant with respect to rise in the consumption sector wise. Earlier, they were not paying too much attention in the rise or fall in the consumption sector wise. But now, banks, especially the central banks, they are very vigilant with respect to what? Rise in the consumption, in which sector consumption is rising with the high rate, and if that consumption is rising, especially in the high vulnerable sector or risky sector, then central bank and government will step in order to moderate or decrease that consumption. Fine. What government can do? Government can increase the GST rate on those things in order to what? Discourage such kind of high rising, high risk consumption part. And similarly, central bank can do what? Central bank can ask the banks, do not go for this exposure. Suppose that if RBI has allowed the exposure of 18% to what? To the real estate sector, RBI will ask bank to go for only 12%. exposure of total capital. Similarly, what government will do? Government will increase the taxation so that this high risk, high rising consumption area can be what? Controlled. Got my point? This point is clear? Okay. So in nutshell, impact on globalization due to global financial crisis of 2008. Right? So these points must be mentioned in the body part. Right? In the body part. So first thing, what? More equity capital. Right? More equity capital infusion in the bank. Second is provide more emergency liquidity to banks. Right? Strengthening banking sector and create too big to fail banks. Right? More capital inflows in developing economy. Right? Another is more global cooperation to strengthen global financial system. Example, increased and more proactive role of G20 in global financial governance. Right? So these are going to be the theme of your answer. If any question is going to be asked related to what we have learned from the global financial crisis, number one, this question was already asked, so there is a less probability they are going to ask same question again. But what we have discussed today, we can also use these points. If question will be like this, if question is going to be like this, what you will suggest to make global financial system more sustainable and less prone to financial crisis like of 2008. Right? So any question, if it is going to ask on how to strengthen Indian financial system, one, how to strengthen Indian financial system, or how to strengthen global financial system. All these points you can effectively use if any question is going to ask on how to make efficient global financial governance, how to prevent global financial governance from the crisis, right? How to make Indian financial system, which is now more integrated with the global financial system. So all these questions you can answer with the help of these points which we have discussed in this question, which was asked last year, which was asked last year. Okay. In the last point you have explained, does it means that if demand in any sector is increased aggressively, which may create a huge inflation like situation, then government and central bank will. No. See, inflation is going to be tackled in general, right? What was my point is was my point was, if any sector start growing with very fast pace, but that sector is going to create a bubble. What is bubble? You have assumed that ki I am going to make this amount of profit, this amount of profit with this amount of profit. For example, suppose that, do you know what is asset bubble? What is asset bubble? How this asset bubble will be created? See, suppose that this is a state, right? There is an Indian state A. Fine. This is the Indian state A, and some of the reason of this state, this is the Indian state, and in this Indian state, some part of this state are demanding we need a separate state for us. So suppose that this section people are of this section of the state, this section of the state, they are demanding what? A separate state for them. They are demanding separate state for them. And after prolonged protest by these people, government of India has accepted their demand, and they said that ki, okay, fine, this is going to be what? This is going to be created as a separate state. So government accepted the demand. So now this is going to be state B, a separate state, and this is going to be state A. State A have a capital here at point M. So M is a capital of A. Now B is going to be what? B is a new state, and there are three cities. There are the three cities N, O, and P. Right? So new state is formed. Now these three potential capital of what? Three potential capital of B. So now rumor is ki P is going to be what? Capital. Right? P is going to be a capital. Fine. So P is going to be a capital. And if P is going to be a capital and you have some land in P, right? You have some land in the district of P, you have some land. Then what is going to happen? The price of land is going to increase, right? But the builder who is looking to develop that P area and construct some building, he thought that you are unaware. You have some land here, and builder thought that you are unaware of this development. P is going to be the capital, right? Then that land means the builder, he said that see, the value of your land is 10 crores, right? But I will offer you 20 crores if you are going to transfer your land to me. Why? Because builder is anticipating that P is going to be what? P is going to be the capital, and the person who owned the land, he is unaware of that thing, right? He is unaware of that thing. So if I will get this land at the price of 20 crore, even paying the 20 crore, thus the double amount, and once I will own the land, P is going to be the capital of state, and then I can make 100 crores from it by constructing a building, because once the district is going to be the capital, lot of people will come and go, lot of state secretariat, other buildings are going to be constructed at that place. So real estate is going to be what? In the boom. So with this anticipation, he is ready to pay how much? He is ready to pay 20 crores for a land which is having the worth of 10 crore, and he started anticipating value of land is 100 crore. So actually the land's value is 10 crore, but he started anticipating value of how much? 100 crore. This is what? Asset bubble. This is the asset bubble, right? So what I was explaining you is if certain kind of the assets bubble in terms of consumption is going to create it, then it is a responsibility of central bank and government to stop doing this thing, right? So that it can be what? It can be controlled in the proper manner. Okay. Sir, can you explain the trade related changes in the globalization after the crisis? So trade related changes, if you will see the trade related changes, if you want to see the trade related changes from this era, 2008 to 2014, right? So in this phase, there was no significant change in the trade related thing, right? But what happened after 2014? What happened after 2014? See, capital start flowing from where? Capital from developed to developing countries. Capital starts flowing from what? Developed to developing countries, right? So that's why the trading activity, the manufacturing activity, especially in the country like what? In the country like India, China, and other South Asian countries, their capacity to produce started increasing with very fast pace, right? And because of that, those jobs who are in US and in Europe, jobs which are for US and European people, they started shifting to where? They started shifting in the more clear cut manner. Earlier job was shifting, but that was related to what? That was related to only manufacturing sector, right? Manufacturing sector. But when this global financial crisis hit the US and Western economies, capital start flowing from more fast pace from developed to developing countries. Then the trade is going to shift from west to eastern side, means South Asia like China, India, and Malaysia, and other Southeast Asian countries. right? So this is why jobs will start moving, and that is why after 2014, from 2014 to 2019, this was a rise of what? This was a rise of protectionism in West. Rise of protectionism in the West. What is protectionism? Protectionism is a kind of philosophy under which you want to protect your country's economy or your country's production activity from other countries' goods. Because in India, labor cost is very low, right? Taxation put by the government is also very low in order to promote their what? Product, right? So India made product, China made product, Southeast Asian countries made product are selling in the US market at the cheaper rate in comparison to their product. So in order to save their product, their economy, they have to put higher taxes on those goods which are made from other countries. Number one thing. Number two things, whosoever is from US and European countries and they have shifted their production activity to which countries? India, China, and Southeast Asia. They must be forced to shift their production facilities back to where? Back to US and their original countries. So if Elon Musk have established their factory in China, so what Donald Trump want he should shift back his factory to where? Where? In US. If it is not possible, but he is planning to create another factory in any other part of the world, so he should not create another factory in another part of the world, but he have to establish his factory where? In US only, right? And those countries like India, who is getting benefited from US, India must allow more market access for US made goods in India. So this is what the basic philosophy of protectionism. So there is a sort of rise of protectionism after 2014 till then 2019. However, when the COVID crisis hit, right? So boomerang of what? The boomerang of protectionism vanished, right? The boomerang of protectionism went vanished. Now nobody is talking about the protectionism. Everybody is trying to save the life from the COVID. Okay, so this is the visible change we have seen. So I hope now it is clear. Vedamurta. So I think what I found that after today's is almost today's session is about to over. What I found that if I am going to discuss only a question, right? So one question is going to take somewhere around 45 minutes to 1 hour. That means if we have 2 hours session, then the entire time is going to be taken just discuss two questions. So rather than just going for question, right? What I feel that 1 hour descriptive part and 1 hour can be devoted to revision part. 1 hour for descriptive and 1 hour for revision part. So those people who are more interested in descriptive only, so I will first discuss the descriptive part, one question, then the second leg I will take in terms of what? Some revision part. Because see, if only discussion, so a lot of people who have not completed at yet, they have anxiety to do what? They have anxiety to cover the descriptive part, but the fact is remain same until unless you have not covered the entire part. Initially, you are going to show too much enthusiasm. This is the message for all those students who have not completed at means at yet they have not completed the syllabus and they are more worried about the descriptive part. So your problem is not going to be solved if I'll start discussing more question the descriptive. The problem will be remain same. I told this thing again and again. Descriptive means two things. One is what? The presentation, other is what? The knowledge, right? So if you have not gained sufficient knowledge, you can worried for that thing, but problem is not going to solve, right? So it's better to do it simultaneously because we are heading towards last few days of the exam. So the best strategies right now, have some revision and have some what? Have some question. So what I feel that the best strategy is what? I will take a revision. I will give the revision for 1 hour, and on the basis of that revision, I will discuss one descriptive question, so that you will get the revision also, and you will get the descriptive answer also. How to write an answer, what to write in that answer. So both problem can be solved, right? So I think this is the better way. In fact, I was have this plan, but I got a message from students from Ashok ji ki no sir, please start the descriptive. Students having anxiety regarding the descriptive. So I said okay, on the request I can do that, but I will definitely let you know what is the right way or the better way to handle that situation. See, regarding CA, when I will do the revision part. So whatever, suppose that I'm going to revise any section. So in that section revision or related information of last 6 months, I'm going to cover it. So what is your viewpoint? Do you agree with me, or you have some other better advice or some better idea? If you have some any other better idea, let me know. I will take consideration of that idea. Yes, obviously, after the phase one, we are going to completely focus on what? Completely focus on descriptive part only. So descriptive part can be attempted if we have sound knowledge. So my goal is to cover revised syllabus like CA, PIB, then through the descriptive. That is a nice suggestion. So what I have decided, revision, then descriptive question discussion. So like what I told you at the time of ending this discussion, I have given a kind of related question. You can answer this question on the basis of this discussion. So what I am going to do, the revision part, and on the basis of revision, descriptive question will be discussed, right? Descriptive question will be discussed. then similar kind of question will be given for practice. So I think this is the best way to cover each and everything. And while revision, I will incorporate related current affairs. Yes, I have covered that PPP model. Okay. Yes, yes. Sharanya means Sharanya Ramesh, except the intro part and the conclusion part, you can write in the points. But means intro should not be in the points, and the conclusion should not be in the points. In that, you can watch the yesterday's session. In that session, I have made it very clear. The intro and conclusion part should not be in what? That should not be in the case of that should not be in points form. Rest of the thing you can be put in the point form. And what the demand of the question means, if we write in the points, what should be the minimum points we have to write? See, whatever the demand of your paper, you have to practice more than that. Right? If your question paper demand 400 words, so at least you have to go for practice for 600 words. And try to write those 600 words in that given time what they are going to give you for 400 words, right? So once you will practice a little bit more in the harder manner, then the more ease is going to be in the final exam. So this is the way how you have to go for it. Okay, fine. I will let you know. I will announce in the group so that you can prepare yourself before the live class. Okay. This happens every time when the group chat is going to be open in the official group. Now again, it is what? People do not have a patience. Okay, Stan. Okay, so I have taken all these inputs. Tomorrow morning, I will drop a message on the Telegram group, and I'll let you know what topic I'm going to start tomorrow. Tomorrow is Sunday, so there is a doubt because see, Sunday for everyone. Sunday, those who are not preparing for the exam or those who are not teaching for this exam, for them Sunday means what? Sunday means the day of enjoy nature and everything. So that sometimes that's create a problem, but still, I will try my best. If it is possible, I will definitely take class tomorrow. Maybe not for 2 hours, at least 1 hour I will take, and I'll do something. Okay. Yeah, I'll check this PDF. I will share it. Okay then. So time to wind up the session. Thanks for your time. So we will meet tomorrow. Okay. Good night to all of you.